Hello and welcome back to another What I Watched. I think this is the third one in December so far, so we're almost there. It's only a mere few days to Christmas. As I record this, it's Tuesday, so is it the 21st, 22nd? I'm not sure. So let me start my screen recorder so we can get on with what I watched the last week. Okay, start of the week, the 13th. We began the week with Ancillars, which is something I've been wanting to see for quite some time, it has to be said. This is a story, a school teacher realises there's something a bit odd going on with one of her pupils, and as she investigates this, she thinks he may be like being bullied at home, or he's obviously very poor, he's picked on by all his classmates, but when she looks into what's going on, she discovers it's something a little bit supernatural with regards to his father and his brother. Okay, I gave this a 3.5. I did really enjoy this. I thought it was very well filmed. I thought the acting was fantastic. I thought the effects where they were used were fantastic. I just don't know that I maybe was expecting a little bit more from it. I was maybe hoping for something on par with Pan's Labyrinth. Maybe that's me hoping for a little bit too much. In saying that, I did really enjoy it and I definitely would recommend it, but I do know a lot of people will probably be a bit disappointed by that one. But personally, I did enjoy it. It just wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I've dropped my cushion again. I have this thing where I have to have a cushion on my knee. I have no idea why it's a thing. On the 14th, I watched the Advent Calendar. Now, this has been on my to-watch list since I saw Joe from Geeky Hijinks Reviews channel talk about this. And then I saw another channel talk about it, the Advent Calendar. Now, this is a horror on Shudder at the moment. This follows a young woman who's a wheelchair user, something I really appreciated that they put a wheelchair user in a role as the starring role, and they didn't feel the need to really overemphasize the fact she was in a wheelchair. It just happened to be she was in a wheelchair, you know what I mean? So I did appreciate that as someone that's, his mother is a wheelchair user, so, and as someone that has disabilities to a degree, I did really appreciate that. So Eva is an ex-dancer, living in a wheelchair, unable to walk, when her friend Sophie gives her an old wooden antique advent calendar. She realises each window contains a surprise that triggers repercussions in real life, some of them good but most of them bad. Now she will have to choose between getting rid of the calendar or walking again, even if it causes death around her. Now that isn't as straightforward as it sounds. There's a lot more to it. Every day she opens, an alarm goes off on the calendar at 12 o'clock, signifying that she must open the calendar, and there's a little sweet inside each box. And when she eats the sweet, something will happen. There's like a little poem or riddle type thing on a lot of the wrappers that gives an indication as to what the repercussion may be. Now, some of these are good, some of these seem to be good, but perhaps aren't when they actually take place. It's not as straightforward as it sounds, and personally, it's one of those little gems. I really enjoyed it. Joe was completely right. It's just occasionally on Shudder you find a movie that's really good, and this is one. I liked everything about it. I liked the acting, I liked any effects we had, I liked the story. I don't think I've seen anything quite like this before, so it's definitely a recommendation from me. Go out and check out the Advent Calendar. I give that a 3.5, so that scored for me the same as Antlers. So there we go. To me, I think it was the fact it was novel, different, that I loved it. Now, on the 15th, we get a movie that makes it into my top 10 of 2021. I will be doing my top 10 movie list next week. I'm going to see The Matrix on Thursday night, so I'm thinking, will that slip in? Will it not? Not sure, so I'm not doing the list just yet. I want to get The Matrix out of the way. King Richard. Again, one I've been really wanting to see after hearing numerous people talk about it. I am a big fan of Will Smith. One of his favourite performances for me was in The Pursuit of Happiness, which a lot of people hate, and I don't understand the hatred for it. The performance and the strength of his performance in that, and one specific emotional scene set in the bathroom of a subway station. If you've seen it, you'll know the scene I mean. It moves me to tears every time I see it. And when someone reviewed this and they actually compared his performance, I think I was watching 3 of the Cinema Squad do Oscar predictions, which are really good videos, guys. You should watch them. I think it was Sean from Lost in the Reel, Jonathan from Man of Movies, and Dan from The Upside Down. were talking about their predictions for Oscars next year, and they were talking about King Richard. Obviously that prompted me to want to see it even more, and one of them did mention the comparison to, you know, the strength of his performance against Pursuit of Happiness. And when I heard that, I thought, I have to see this. So Will Smith plays Richard Williams, who would be more commonly known as the father of Serena and Venus Williams, the very famous female tennis players. They come from a very poor background, and he is just this single-minded father that is absolutely determined that they are going to succeed. Now, some people would say he's too pushy, he's too much of a helicopter parent, he's too much maybe living vicariously through his daughters. I personally loved his character. There are places where you can say he's a bit much. There's one sentence he uses at the beginning of this movie about people disrespecting him, but no one's going to disrespect his daughters, and he's teaching them to respect themselves, to stand up for themselves, not to take any crap, and that they can be anything in life they want to be, and you don't take no for an answer. I loved this role. I loved his character. There was nothing that wasn't covered that I wanted to see more of. I do feel we got enough of the girls in it also, because even though the movie was following the girls' progression through the years, it doesn't actually stay with them until they hit massive big time, until, you know, obviously you get the little bit of gumph at the end. That's not a spoiler because we all know who Serena and Venus Williams are. But this is a story about the journey for very humble beginnings and about their father. And personally, I loved the hell out of this movie. Will Smith was amazing. There's very mixed reviews on this. Some people love it, some people aren't so keen. I was in the love camp, and it goes straight into my top 10 movies of 2021. Okay, 4.5 out of 5. On the same day, I went to the cinema to watch Spiderman No Way Home. Do not worry, I am not going to give any spoilers because I do realise it takes some people a little bit of time to see these movies. This, to me and my family, was the best Spider-Man movie to date. For me, coming away from it, my main thing that I took away is how good Tom Holland was. I know a lot of people don't like him in the role of Spider-Man. A lot of people aren't very keen that he's been given the role in Uncharted of Nathan Drake. I was questionable at that as well because I thought he's too young. It should be someone older. When I saw him acting in Spider-Man, in this specific Spider-Man, I was seriously impressed by how good he was. The sort of emotional resonance he got into that character. So I'm very happy with him in Uncharted now after having seen that. I didn't expect the level of maturity that I saw from that performance. Really enjoyed everything about it. CGI was fantastic. Characters were all brilliant. Good plot. I can't criticise it. I really enjoyed it. If I had to criticise, I would say it perhaps moved a little bit slow to start with. There was a definite turning point in the movie where everything just picked up. The beginning did drag a little bit, but that's possibly just because superhero movies wouldn't be my favourite genre. I do enjoy them, but they wouldn't be something I get ridiculously excited about like some people do. So yeah, I have to thoroughly recommend Spider-Man. That's 4 out of 5. The next evening, I watched Silent Night. Right, I think this is the one on Netflix at the moment. I don't know how to explain this to you. Right, what does it say? Surviving Christmas just got a little harder. Nell, Simon and their boy Art are ready to welcome friends and family for what promises to be a perfect Christmas gathering. Perfect except for one thing. Everyone is going to die. Okay. I went into this not having a clue what it was going to be about. I assumed there was going to be a murderer. That's not what happens. If you want a proper, decent review on this, I would refer you to Screen Star's channel, Aaron. If I remember, I will put a link in the description, or I will link his video at the end of this one. I didn't like this, and I think that was purely through personal taste. This is set at Christmas. It is a Christmas movie. It's very British in its humour. Sometimes that works. For me, a lot of the time, some British humour misses the mark. I'm not a Monty Python fan. I can see the unsubscribe button being pressed. I'm not saying it's like Monty Python. I'm saying there's a certain type of British humour that doesn't really hit with me. And this is so dark. It's so black, the humour. You can't laugh at it because it's depressing. And Aaron did say this is a really depressing movie, and he's totally right. I didn't watch his whole review because I wanted to go see the movie first. I don't like knowing an awful lot. I will go back and rewatch it. I do think he enjoyed it. Enjoyed's maybe the wrong word. I think he rated it higher than I did. I just could not come away from this with much positive to say. Mark Kermode apparently really thought that Keira Knightley's in this, that she was really good and it was a bit iffy. The performances are all excellent, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with them. The setting's fine, everything, the characters are all very believable individuals. I didn't particularly like anyone. Vanessa Paradis and Johnny Depp's daughter's in this, and she is the most stunningly beautiful woman you've ever seen. Darren's watching it and he's like, she looks like Vanessa Paradis. I'm like, yeah, she would do it. It's her daughter. But it's such a weird thing because she's got her dad's eyes and it's just like Johnny Depp's eyes looking at you, and obviously the bone structure, the colouring is all her mum. She's just such a beautiful woman. That's nothing to do with the movie. But if you like extremely dark humour and a very, very depressing subject matter, I don't want to tell you what the plot is because it would spoil it for you. I went in knowing nothing. But what is going to happen is clear very early on. But warning, it's not a feel-good Christmas movie. It's not one to sit down and watch with a family. Check it out if you like something really dark at Christmas. I gave it a 2 out of 5. On the 17th, while we're talking about depression, I watched 137 Shots. This is a documentary. This is shocking. I might do a true crime video about this next year. In this documentary, law enforcement faces scrutiny as Americans demand justice after police violence claims multiple black lives in Cleveland. This follows two people that drive away from a traffic stop in a car. I'm not going to go into loads of detail because I may talk about it later. But the upshot of it is 137 shots ring out and these two individuals are dead. They haven't done anything wrong. They've maybe taken a bit of drugs or something, that's it. One of the police officers actually climbed onto the bonnet of the car and shot through the windscreen 45 times. He later claimed to have no recollection of doing it. Unfortunately for him, he left his boot print on the actual bonnet of the car, so they knew who it was. And this follows what happened, and it follows the court case afterwards, and all but one officer, I think there were 40-something officers, all of them pled the fifth and refused to give evidence, and I don't think that should be allowed. It's the same as in an instance where people can sit through a police interview and say no comment. I don't understand why that's allowed. To me, that's obstructing justice. You shouldn't be allowed. If you are called into the police station and you're interviewed, you should have to give an interview and you should have to say what, but apparently you're allowed to say no comment. And in this case, these two young people died. Every single police officer pled the fifth on this, all bar one. And the one that didn't said that they were terrified for their lives and he had never been so terrified. The law basically says that if a police officer is in fear of his life at the time, through the information that he is aware of, then he does have the right to use deadly force, even if that information later turns out to be incorrect. Now obviously that is used in not the best way by some corrupt police officers, but this follows this case and what happens and the fact at the end of the day they get away with it. It also covers briefly the death of a 12-year-old boy. He's in a local park and I think he's got an airsoft rifle. Someone calls it in. He says, look, this lad is frightening people, but it is a juvenile, and I think it is a replica, it's not a real gun. It shows the video footage of the police driving up, opening the door, and in the same instant that that car drives up, they shoot this 12-year-old boy dead. And again, no, everybody gets away with it. It's sobering stuff. I give it a 3 out of 5. I would have liked to have seen more. I would have liked a longer documentary or like a series on this. It was shocking stuff, and it will make you really angry to watch. 137 shots. That is on Netflix at the moment. Desperately in need for a little bit of light relief, I watched Russell Howard's new stand-up on Netflix called Lubricant. I really like Russell Howard. If you're in America, I'm not sure if you know who he is. I don't know if he's known in America. He's a UK comic. I have seen him live myself, and he was really, really good. This, however, is not. His humour is just too smutty, and that sounds, makes me sound all kinds of repressed, but I'm not. Billy Connolly can go out there and he can put across any joke, and it's hilarious. He can tell you a story, and even if it's not true, he can make you believe that that story's real and true and it happened to him as a child. Russell Howard keeps setting up these stories of things that happened in his childhood with different relatives, and they're not real when he's telling them. They don't come across like they are, things tied together too properly. He steals material from other people and tries to change it a little bit. One specific one he steals from Billy and does it really badly. As I say, I'm a fan of Russell Howard. I do usually find him funny, but I did not find this stand-up funny at all. So 2 out of 5. There's a giggle here and there, but it's too much emphasis on vulgarity for me. Too much, too far. So yeah, 2 out of 5. On the 18th, we watched A Boy Called Christmas, which I think is on Prime at the moment. This is a lovely little Christmas movie. This follows a young boy and his pet mouse who set off after his father, who has gone north looking for like an elf village. He goes to follow. He's being looked after by his aunt, who's just a hideous, horrible human being. He leaves. He goes in search of this elf village, which invariably he does find, and an adventure ensues. I won't give you any more information. The cinematography is beautiful. It's a gorgeous setting. It's an elf village at Christmas. Could you get a nicer setting? It does end really nicely. There's a nice little twist to it. It sets up the tradition that we all know as Christmas. It's just a lovely little film that you could watch with your kids. It's probably not one that adults would go back to over and over again. I know there are movies like Home Alone that you will go back to year after year, even though they're like family kid movies, you watch them every year. I don't know if this one will sort of hit that level, but it is a nice one to sit down with your family and watch. I give that a 3 out of 5. On the same evening, right, I haven't excuse me, I haven't finished this yet, so I can't give a score on this. This is a British drama series called The Salisbury Poisonings on Netflix at the moment. This is a true story of basically a Russian spy was targeted, was it the late 2010s? And he was poisoned and he died, but other people were caught up in this in Salisbury, and this is about the police and the health authority trying to shut it down, trying to find out where it's come from, who's been affected, what they need to close down, just a whole operation involving this poisoning. And it is really well acted at the moment. It's very much going to be the sort of thing you either enjoy or you don't. I personally like anything. It was March 2018, it says here. Salisbury became the site of an unprecedented national emergency. This 3-part dramatisation focuses on the extraordinary heroism shown by the local community. I like anything that's true, so I do enjoy this kind of thing. It's Timothy Spall's son that actually acts in this. I think it's Rafe. Yeah, Rafe Spall is the main police officer who was also poisoned and was in hospital extremely ill. I can't remember if he dies or not. I haven't finished this, so I'll have to watch it and find out. On the next evening, The Coming Pandemic. Now this was sobering stuff. It wasn't actually very well done. This reads like it's just about a pandemic in general. This was made in 2005. It's a disease the world has been fearing. No country is prepared. Scientists now believe it's only a matter of time before another major epidemic kills millions. Now, you can imagine by reading that, I'm thinking, oh my god, they were right, and I'm watching it. But basically, they just concentrate on bird flu. Incidentally, I had bird flu, and I had to get the Tamiflu that is shown in this. So I remember this very, very well. So yeah, 2 out of 5. I wouldn't suggest it's particularly worth watching. I just found it really interesting that it was talking about a coming pandemic that all the world's professionals are saying is going to happen. Obviously, look at us now. Also the 19th, This Is Not a Movie. Now this is really interesting if you're interested in like politics and real world things. This follows a British journalist called Robert Fisk. Now, this was filmed in 2019. He actually sadly died last year. For more than 40 years, British journalist Peter Fisk has reported on some of the most violent conflicts in the world, from Northern Ireland to the Middle East, always with his feet on the ground and a notebook in hand, travelling into landscapes devastated by war, ferreting out the facts and sending reports to the media he works for. Now, it mentions Northern Ireland, which was why I watched it, but it does centre around like Syria. We talk about Osama bin Laden, who he has interviewed 3 times. So it's very much all about that. But what I like about this guy is he is very direct. He says what he thinks. He's not going to be swayed. He said in certain situations, people think you have to give 50-50 to the victim and the perpetrator. And he says, no. He says, you don't want to hear from the person that's perpetrated this disaster. You want to hear from the victims that have lived through this. He also deals very much with the Israeli-Palestine conflict. And I'm completely on board with his viewpoints on that. He says some very interesting, direct things about Northern Ireland, and very much something that I'm on board with his viewpoints, but something that most journalists don't say, and don't want to report they want to keep a very sort of like, I don't want to give a proper opinion, so I'll stay on the fence so that nobody's going to be offended. This guy does not do this. This guy says, this is what's happening, this is what you need to know, this is who's guilty. And I have a lot of respect for him. Like I say, unfortunately, he died last year. I think he died of a stroke. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5 I gave to that. It's something he says during it. He says, this isn't a movie, this is real life. So the documentary is called This Isn't a Movie. Right, I think, does that bring me to... Yeah, that brings me, because there's Swan Song and Fat Man. I watched on Monday, so that would be next week. So that is what I've watched this week. I will come back to you next week. That's my pillow on the floor again. With those movies that I've watched. There'll probably be some Christmassy ones in there. I am on, just weirdly today, I just got a real fixation with wanting to watch Planes, Trains and Automobiles, which is what I'm going to do now. I watched See No Evil, Hear No Evil again this morning for the umpteenth. I don't know how many times I've seen that movie. It remains and it always will be my favourite comedy. Well, it might not always be. Something may tip it at some point. The only thing that came close to it was Borat. That came very close. But Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder in See No Evil, Hear No Evil has yet to be topped for me. David Lyons, I think it is. David Lyons it is. Isaac's here. The bad parenting that exists, my 10-year-old watched some of See No Evil, Hear No Evil this morning. Yes, it does have bad language in it, I'm aware, but it's funny. It's funny. So I'm now going to go watch See No Evil. No, I'm not. I'm now going to go watch some Planes, Trains and Automobiles, because I'm just in the mood for that this Christmas week. And I shall be back to you next week with what I watched, which will be, Christmas will be done and dusted. And after that, I should be back to you with my top 10 movies of 2021. We shall see if The Matrix will squeeze its way in there, who knows. So thank you for watching, folks, and I will catch up with you guys next week. Over and out from Lisa Loves.